to go. So this is unmet needs money. It's the going from one line to another. There is no match. This is used for this purpose. You know, it's an unmet need that people needed this. So that's what we like to do.
It sounds like that's an appropriate place to use the money.
Yes.
To move the money from.
Yeah, I gotta say, everyone has been, for such a stressful, tough situation, everyone has really come together. The administration had a meeting before this even started, working very closely with the Department of Social Services, who provided us with the list of older adults that were receiving SNAP and their SNAP benefits. So I gotta say, everyone that we've worked with, I just want to appreciate everyone's help in getting this done.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this item?
A question.
If
the needs for SNAP are met, I know the more critical or equally critical need are the HEAP benefits that have been delayed, and I'm particularly concerned about the older population because I know a lot of that population receives HEAP benefits. I mean, I don't think once we allocate this funding for this reason, we can then transfer it for HEAP help. But I guess my question would be, can you give us a little input about what you expect to happen with HEAP and what is needed for that?
Sure. So we're putting this in a miscellaneous fund, so this could be for gift cards for whatever purpose.
Right.
The immediate need at the time was for SNAP, but yes,
Okay.
HEAP has been suspended indefinitely, you know, barring the circumstances of the government. We were looking into helping as well. It's a little bit more difficult because at least with the SNAP, we could give someone a gift card to a supermarket, they could go get their food. For HEAP, we're trying to think of how would we get the money to the vendors. The vendor would have to be willing to accept our, you know, our letter of saying that we're good for it, it's coming your way. Same thing with the utilities. So CAP does have utility assistance, so people can go to the Community Action Program in Brewster for assistance. However, for the oil, propane, other fuels, we're still trying to work that out. It's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Legislator Goldman, you had your hand up.
Thank you. So you're not going to buy any gift cards or anything now? You'll wait until beginning of
The need.
End of November, beginning of June. Right?
Correct. Yes. If we hear that there's no benefit for December, we would buy the cards at that time.
Anyone else? Legislator Crowley.
I just want to say thank you to Marlena. I mean, you guys have done an awesome job with this. You took it really right off the bat and ran with it and did everything you needed to. So thank you for looking out for our seniors and being amazing at your job.
Yeah. And thank you for offering to help as well. So I appreciate that.
Hopefully we did some good.
Yes.
And that's our hope. If December happens, we're ready to go like tomorrow to buy gift cards, setting up vendors and all that, which we got set just in case the December happens.
And may I ask, how many, I know we have about 3,000 SNAP recipients in Putnam County. Do you have a percentage of seniors that receive?
Yes. So we have 944 cases
900.
where the older adult is the head of household.
Okay, so that's more, that's almost a third. Yeah.
Correct.
Anyone else?
I do have another question about HEAP, which I know that's not on the agenda, but you know, so it's been delayed, right? The applications, the sign up has been delayed. Are we helping those folks, making them aware that they should sign up anyway despite the delay, and just to make sure that they are signing up and applying and to have that on? Okay, great.
Correct, yes. Our outreach is continuing. Processing is still happening with the applications. We do have an early outreach spreadsheet, so yes, we've been doing status quo in that regard.
It's cold. My wood stove is broken.
Yes, I used to process HEAP applications. I understand the need, and it's, you know, it's very difficult, especially because those benefits go up to $900, maybe $50. So there's a lot of people that rely on that benefit. So
thanks for that info, Marlene. Appreciate it.
Any other legislators have any questions or comments? Anyone from the public wishing to comment? Okay, thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
So with that, I will make a motion to approve the November benefit for SNAP recipients for the Office of Senior Resources. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Number 5, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, but I took this one.
It doesn't look like you need.
You want it on the front page of the paper?
To the November 10th meeting of the Rules Committee. I'd ask everybody to please stand for the pledge. Bill, would you lead us?
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Legislator Elner,
Here.
Legislator Gouldman,
Present.
Chairman Birmingham.
Here. Just a brief chairman's verbal report. I just generally use this to give a little synopsis of the agenda. I imagine there's going to be, our routine items we have, acceptance of minutes, we've got a budgetary amendment. I think our biggest items will be our local laws and also a discussion of a matter Legislator Counsel brought up to us. So with that, I'll move on to item number 4. It's acceptance of minutes. It's for the May 15th meeting, the June 16th meeting, the July 17th meeting, and the August 25th meetings of the Rules Committee. It's not a motion, it's just an acceptance. Any comments from legislators or public on those minutes? Seeing none, they'll be filed. Thank you. We're going to move on to item number 5, Budgetary Amendment Finance, accounting for ARPA spending September 30th. Barbara, are you here for that as well? You're not? Okay. Bill's not here. Do we have before us I imagine this is a bit of housekeeping. At the request of the Commissioner of Finance, following budgetary amendment is required. Required, but should be requested. It equals $4,026,007. It's a zero fiscal impact. We're moving, increasing revenues essentially from ARPA into the capital fund, various lines. Any comments on the committee? Any legislators? Amy?
So assuming he passes out of committee, we can discuss this even further with Commissioner Carlin at the audit committee at the end of the month. So
Perfect,
we'll
indeed.
have discussion there if you have questions on it.
Great. He usually attends that meeting.
He always, usually attends the ARPA.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't ask questions ahead of
That's
time,
fine.
but I'm assuming these were for capital projects that we didn't complete or do, or why are they going?
It could be a couple of things. It could be for things that have already been completed, and yet we're just doing the bookkeeping to, instead of using tax dollars from the 26 budget, from the 25 budget, to replace those with ARPA fundings. I don't know for sure, but that's a good question for Bill, but they may be projects that have already been completed, instead of using tax dollars. And of course,
Email.
Yeah, an email, and he'll be here for audit, I would imagine. To the extent, and again, I don't know this is it, but to the extent any of those dollars were tax dollars that are being replaced with this, that will just roll into fund balance at the end of the year. Any other comment from a legislator? Any comments from the public? Do I have a motion? I'll move it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bill seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. You're item number 6, Barbara. Come on up. We have our Commissioner of Planning here. Item number 6, approve a local law to amend Chapter 25 of our code entitled Article 6, entitled Transportation Advisory Council. And this is a memo you sent to us on November 3rd. Welcome. Would you tell us a little bit about it and what you'd like us to do tonight?
We currently have a Transportation Advisory Council. It was established, I believe in 2013, based off of a study that was done to advise on different, at the time, actions that the legislature or the transportation department were considering, including the taxi and limousine law. There was changes being made to transportation at the time. some of the items in it are a little outdated.
Okay.
Including the chairman was listed as the transportation manager, who we no longer have that position. And some of the terminology for the members is a little insensitive. So
Okay.
I just wanted to update that and try to address the circumstances that we're looking at now with the transit study. This council is a requirement for us. They are supposed to meet regularly to advise us on transportation issues that we're facing, the capital plan. We are starting the transit study, and also our Title VI plan and compliance with FTA. So I have recommendations for new membership, trying to address getting input from a wide variety of local citizens or businesses. So the current membership is a representative of the Putnam County Chambers of Commerce.
The business community?
It's the business community. So we just want to open it up a little bit so that it's either a Chamber of Commerce with a local one, or a business council within Putnam County. We have currently a representative for people with disabilities. We wanted to just open that up as well, in the field of human services or intellectual and development disabilities. We would like to keep the citizen at large. There are two currently positions, a citizen with a mental impairment or a citizen with a physical impairment. We'd like to change that to someone who's eligible for hard paratransit, and then someone who has experience using our system as a rider. We currently have a representative for the taxi and limousine business, and we have a lot of our riders going to medical appointments, to the hospital, to dialysis. So we would like to change that, and we currently are not considering the taxi and limousine law and the effect on transportation. So we would like to open it up to experience or knowledge in the medical services field. And finally, we would like to have someone with knowledge as a transit operator to give us a different perspective. So those are the changes with membership. The membership also covers ex officio members. We did have a lot of county department heads, or actually there was two chairs of the legislature, the Economic Development and Energy Committee, as well as the chair of Physical Services. These are currently and still proposed to be basically advisory to the board. The only voting members are the 7 appointed. So I'm recommending reducing that somewhat. The board does meet quite a bit. I don't want to waste everyone's time. So I'm trying to narrow it down to those that are the most knowledgeable on transportation and can offer advice on changes that we might have. The powers and duties, I'm also recommending to update. The current recommendations are advising on the taxi and limousine recommendations and paratransit plus. Neither of those are current policy or planned proposal. I would like to keep them advising us on any studies that we do, policies, our procedures, our Title VI plan, our DBE plan, and keeping, right now I think there's an annual update to the legislature and county executive. I would like to keep that so the main change is removing the taxi limousine recommendation.
And also doing away with the quarterly updates as well, no?
Changing it to annual to keep it consistent with
Right.
and it would basically go into an annual update. They currently are recommended to meet monthly. That's a bit much. I'm hoping to scale it down to quarterly.
I noticed the way it is now in the law itself, it's quarterly updates, but an annual presentation. I see the annual presentation is stricken in the new law. Any reason for that?
If you'd like a presentation, we can keep that. I was thinking just a report, but if you'd rather have a presentation.
Is that in the new duties, the report? I see there's a recommendations to the county exec, in the revised, there are recommendations to the county executive legislature, but just updates to the, annual updates to the legislature. That could take the form of a written update as opposed to an annual. I guess if we got a written update and we had questions of the board, we could invite them to.
If it's however you want.
Yeah, no, I'm not making a big deal. It's nothing that I'm suggesting we change, but I'm just.
Can I recommend
Yeah,
that you
sure.
just change it to or when requested? Put a line in there for provide annual updates to the legislature or when requested. Therefore,
Sure.
we can, does that make sense?
Or
Barbara?
as requested, under.
Or as requested.
Yeah, under 25-42C,
Yeah.
provide annual updates to the legislature or as requested.
Yeah. Only, and I'll justify that with, we are doing this transportation study. It is an issue that our constituents, it's one of the main issues I think that we deal with on our side of the county, is questions about transportation. So it would be good if something is pending or there's something significant in the study that we can request that they attend. It's there. They're not gonna say, well, I'm sure they don't need it there, but it's there.
So I'll make a motion to amend paragraph C under 25-42 powers and duties. So it'll read, provide annual updates to the legislature or as requested. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment? From anybody? Public included? No? All in favor on that amendment?
Aye. It's a
Sorry, Paul,
committee.
don't get to-
I voted on it too.
Aaron voted too.
I did.
I didn't vote.
We're no longer a full.
It's overwhelming acclamation for that
Gee, thanks.
amendment. I interrupted you, Barbara. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think that's, I'm open
Okay.
for questions,
Yeah,
or if anyone else has any comments or
Yeah,
what
sure.
changes.
Yeah, I do have one question, and it's geographical as well, as Nancy was just saying, different areas of the county have different transportation needs or different transportation policies. I represent in part, in all, but part of my district is the village of Brewster. And as you know, they have their own taxi and limousine local law. Maybe some other municipalities do as well, I don't know. I don't think the town of Southeast does, Paul, or the town of Carmel. But I know there was a move back about 10, 15 years ago where the legislature wanted to make it a countywide, and the state actually passed legislation to do that. It was vetoed by, so it's more than 10 years ago, Governor Pataki, because there's the local option, and I think that's a mandatory option, at least it was at the time under state statute. Do you know if that's still a requirement that, or a prohibition that we're not allowed to? And I'm putting you on the spot, so it's unfair. And I don't know the answer either, so I'm just asking you.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
That would be a question for Consumer Affairs, who would
Okay.
regulate that.
Because what I'd like to see is perhaps, because it is a sensitive topic in my village and in the district that I represent, because, and I'm sure other, I know Cold Spring has a train station as well as does Patterson. But again, I know with Brewster especially, the taxis can be a bit of an issue as far as traffic control. We have a drop-off lane that is supposed to be only for buses and taxis, actually only for buses, I think, but the taxis use that a lot. So I know the village has found their local law to be a good tool in enforcing that type of thing. So my point is I would just be a little reluctant, because I think the taxi community does need to be represented. but I'm just 1 out of 9, so I'll just throw that out there, and I'm not gonna make a motion to amend at this point. But this has to come back to us anyway, because we do have an amendment into the local law. It has to be in our boxes for 7 days, so we won't be able to pass it tonight anyway. I just want to go to Greg first, and then I'll go to you. He had his hand up.
Okay.
That's my only point. Maybe we'll consider putting
Can I
that back in.
address that?
Of course, yeah, of course.
I just wanted to give you a little history on this too.
Okay.
We actually tried to fill the positions with existing roles. That was the one position I was having trouble finding someone to agree to. And that was part of the reason why.
Okay. They're running their own business. That's why they're busy running their businesses. Okay. The only thing, they probably want representation if we ever do venture into that thicket again with the tax law. So, I don't know, food for thought. Before I go to you, Greg, we have counsel has a question.
Through the chair, I just wanted to say that for a local law, it's actually 10 days it has to be in your box. Its resos are 7 days.
Okay.
So if,
I see the eyebrows of our clerk went up.
Really? Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Well, yeah, Bill, I'm sorry, Greg first, then Aaron, then Nancy.
Not necessary.
Okay, we'll go to Aaron first, and Greg's waiting. Aaron.
I just want to ask a question. This is a local law, so if it's not what we want it to be, why are we going to pass it? Or why are we going to pass it through committee? Why are we like flying through these things? If we have to have more discussion to make them right, I think that we should wait, bring it back if we need to, because you said, well, it's going to sit in our mailbox and it has to go through a committee again. Why are we going to do that? Why wouldn't we just have the discussion when it's appropriate instead of just ramming it through and get it done the right way the first time?
Well, I think we're having a discussion tonight, and.
But we just passed it.
No, we didn't, we just did an amendment.
Amendment, we had passed the amendment.
Right.
Right.
So then the
But
next
then-
time it'll come to us will be another meeting as amended.
But it's moving out of committee is my point.
No, it's not.
It's not moving out of committee?
No.
It can now. Now that it has an amendment, it cannot move to the full.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are we sure that that's what we want it to be? We're sure that that's what we want, is my point.
Well, the good thing about the
It's the
10 or
discussion.
7, yeah, the good thing about either the 10 or 7 day rule is that it'll be in our boxes, so that if any of us have any further discussion about it, we can circulate an email about it.
Okay, I just feel like with local laws, we need to like, this need to take our, I know,
We're
no,
not
I
too
agree. I just, if you said, well, we can just bring it up for more discussion and we have time. So I don't understand why we don't just get all the discussion out and then pass the law as we want it to be.
This is a good example of getting the discussion out. And we're not gonna forward it to the full tonight, so this is good. It's in public, which is good, and it's, we're discussing. I'm not trying to shoot you down.
No,
or
I just,
minimize what you're saying. I'm just-
I just don't understand the rush for things that are laws. That's that's it.
We're okay, we're trying to be deliberate here, but this isn't going anywhere tonight, so that's
well,
good.
if I may,
Yeah,
and I forgot, and I didn't know that it was a 10-day.
okay.
So let me ask the committee and Barbara, this minor change that I just imposed on you and the Rules Committee, it is minor, and does that have a great impact on your timeline for needing this to move forward?
So I would like this advisory council to assist with the study. We have not, we have made an award to a company. The contract has not been executed yet, so there is time.
There is a little bit of time, so it's not urgent right
No.
now. Okay, I just didn't, because I would be happy to rescind that amendment, actually, so. But I do have some other comments about it, since there is time, not making your life more difficult. Sorry, if I may.
Yeah, then Paul, then Aaron, yeah.
One comment I had was in 25-40 membership in term 1, section 1, was geography considered for membership? I mean, and I say that because you know the situation in my district and in Legislator Goldman's district. You know, we are without transportation, no paratransit, nothing. So for me, I would like to see geography considered for membership at all, if it can be. Do I necessarily need to see it in the local law? I don't know how we would phrase it, but that is important to me to have representation. I often do feel like a lot of our appointed committees sometimes are heavily East County represented and not so much west side of the county. So with that,
So, I'm hoping by opening it up, it does
We
open
can
it
get
up.
that.
I mean, for example, the business change from the Putnam County Chamber of Commerce, which is what was more focused over here, could be
opened up to.
Cold Springs
Mhm.
member. I actually would also like to see a wider range of geography, but also guidance on, the transit study is going to cover every single element of our program, paratransit, the trolley, the Croton Falls shuttle, the current system, as well as microtransit. So I'm trying, when I think of who could possibly
Mhm.
fill these roles, I am actually considering that as well.
And if I may, on that note, and it may be irrelevant, but one idea I had was somebody who's very knowledgeable about transportation overall that we have in the county would be a Putnam's representative to the MTA board. Not knowing if the train has anything to do with this transportation study at all, but somebody with that amount of knowledge and that many years on the MTA board, in finance, chair of the finance committee and things like that. I don't know if that would be helpful to you.
It would be, but I'm not sure they'd be willing to do it, but.
Right,
sure.
or as an ex officio,
Yes.
could they be an ex officio member?
We could have that.
Okay, that would be hopeful too. And I wanted to just say I really like the fact that you have some, as a transit operator on there too. I got a lot of knowledge from the people operating the trolleys. We all have our ideas about how the trolley should run and what should happen, but it's really helpful for me to talk to the guy that's driving the trolley because he has a lot of input. So, thanks.
I'm gonna go to Paul next, but before we do that, just in the sense of getting something on paper, would the committee and my colleagues feel under 25-40, paragraph A2, to also include as an ex officio member when you're the Putnam County representative on the MTA board? And again, we're not drafting the person into this, they can be there or not, but.
I'd appreciate that, thank you.
I'll make that motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that amendment?
Great idea.
No? Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
You've got both amendments, Ed?
Yep.
Great. Paul, I'm sorry, go ahead.
My apologies for voting on the First Amendment.
Oh, we're glad to know
So
you're on.
exciting.
I thought I was expressing my support internally, but my brain was still in the full meeting.
We're gonna
from
put you
earlier,
down as a
so I apologize.
definite maybe.
Here, consider it an ex
My
officio
question,
vote.
Barbara, is when was the last time that the Transportation Advisory Council, when was the last time they ever had a meeting? When was the last time they had a bona fide council? If you know,
It's been years.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
5 years, 10 years?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Oh, no, is there anybody, do you have a list of who was
Yes.
the last group?
Some of the members have actually passed away. It's been a while.
Okay, all right, so it's kind of important to get this thing
Yes.
established. All right, and I don't think we're rushing into anything here. I think this is the way to do it. You made a request, it's in front of us. It's 2 pages, it's not that tough to get through. So I think I'm supportive internally and externally.
Okay. Erin?
So with the MTA, we're suggesting that it's not going to be something that's it's not necessary because they're not under our obligation. They're under the state's obligation, the MTA, right? So realistically, we could put it on there, but they don't have to come to the meeting. So it would not be a necessity. We could, well, no, but we can ask them to come, but they don't answer to us in that respect, right? They answer to the state.
Exactly.
So we could put it on there, we could ask them to come, which I'm sure they would. I just don't want to make it like we're setting expectations for somebody that we have no purview over.
Exactly. But-
So that's what I just wanted to comment on that. They don't answer to us when it comes to that. They could give a great amount of knowledge to us, but
Right. No, I don't disagree with you at all on that, but on the other side of that coin, it does give them as of right at least a seat at the table if they want one, which is great, which I think you're in favor of too.
I don't
Yeah.
disagree. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that it wasn't something like a must-have or we have
Yeah.
to find,
It's a,
it's not within our purview, so
No.
just want to make that clear.
perfect. Any other legislators have any comments on, and first of all, by the way, thanks for putting a lot of thought into this, and thank you for, I know you've got a lot on your plate as Commissioner of Planning, and this is, to have a committee like this that has an important role and yet hasn't been, well, predating you, hasn't been perhaps paid attention to the way it should have been. Thank you for bringing this to our attention and getting us to do something with it.
And actually, before I leave, I want
Sure.
to thank, there's actually a member of the original Transportation Advisory, actually, it's still standing since it hasn't been replaced. I think Mr. Gross is actually.
Mark Gross, are you a member of the committee?
He didn't even know that.
He's our citizen at large.
Thank you, Eric, for your service. Thank you very much. Nancy, then any member of the public, yeah.
Just one more comment, not
Sure.
really particular to this, but Legislator Yonke brought up a good point. We have a lot of those task forces and committees in the county that are defunct,
Yeah.
that haven't met in years or ever. One task force, one war on drug task force is one of them.
Historical?
Yeah, so maybe that's something we wanna, I don't know if that's under our purview to look at.
To the extent we appoint any of them or confirm them, we could certainly make it a policy, to the extent they're a local law, we certainly
Oh.
could look into that. And
Yeah.
maybe there are some structural issues that, of the way it's designed that may discourage people from
Mhm.
participating that we could fix.
Or can we do away with them legally? I don't think these are, maybe some of these that I'm thinking of were not established by local law. They were just committees that either a county executive or the legislature put together, so.
Oh, good point, good point. Any member of the public? No? All right, as we discussed, it does have some changes that need to be done, so we're not going to pass anything out tonight. But if we could get this on the agenda for the December Rules Committee meeting, because I do realize you want to get going, and with, especially, hopefully by then or shortly thereafter, we'll have that vendor online to give the assistance, and then, and the way this is structured, as it has been passed, the county exec would nominate and we would confirm?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Thank you, and thank you for putting all this together. Thanks for coming
Thank you,
out on
Barb.
what's becoming a cold night tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
Okay, the next item is item number 7, approval of local law legislative council positions. What I'd like to do on this is, first of all, I think we're going to change the approval to discussion. Well, first of all, Bill, do you have a motion to make?
I do. I'd make a motion to accept this additional from Nancy Montgomery.
I'll second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. As we discussed earlier, our local laws have to be in our box in unamended form in some fashion. And Legislator Montgomery, in the last few days and more than that, has put a lot of thought into this. And she has some suggestions for us, and maybe others of my colleagues do as well. So on item number 7, we're not going to approve it tonight. At least I'm not going to vote to approve it tonight. But I think we should have a discussion. So let's just jump into what we have before us. We have the additional, we'll get to that as well. We've got the local law that was prepared for the last meeting, and then you can see there's a red line, which is both red and blue, which has the changes to what we had last meeting. It's in the last 2-3 pages of your attachment. And these changes were made in response to some of the comments given at the last committee meeting. The first change is in section 1, paragraph D. It's more, and again, this is more of a finding of the county legislature, should this be approved, that the Putnam County Legislature hereby determines that, and this is the added language, the interests and requirements of legislative responsibility and authority will be better served by such majority and minority council providing advice and recommendations. More of a style cleanup than anything else. Under section 2, though, we have some substantive changes. As you'll see, it currently, or now reads as hopefully amended, notwithstanding any other provision of the county charter, there is hereby established the positions of counsel to the majority of the county legislature and counsel to the minority of the county legislature to be appointed in the manner and have the powers as provided herein. Just a brief comment on that. This comes from a discussion with Deputy County Attorney BC. There is a question, I'm certain and she's certain, but we're not certain in the same direction. There's a question as to whether or not the county, a local law of Putnam County Legislature can supersede the county law with respect to section 501 of the county law, which says that the county attorney shall be the legal advisor to the county. I won't show our cards which one believes what, but there is a discussion anyway about whether or not we can supersede that law. However, in the spirit of trying to get something together, we're avoiding that question. And by striking the word provisions of law, notwithstanding any provision of law, we're going to say notwithstanding any other provision of the county charter. The point there being that when we amend the charter, we can certainly revise it. The question still remains whether or not we can supersede state law. We might need that for another day. The next substantive change is section 3, and it's just paragraph A. We just essentially moved that to section 2. That's the establishment. The next two changes are parallel. One has to do with the majority council, and one has to do with the minority council. Instead of having them appointed every 3 years, we had discussion at our last meeting, it might be wise to have that appointment annually, because the theory being, our membership changes has a possibility of changing every year. So instead of having a council have a 3-year term, this would be a 1-year term, pardon me. And then, again, this is a parallel change in both majority and minority. In the event of a vacancy in the office of counsel to the majority or minority, the replacement may be chosen thereafter by an affirmative vote of the majority of such party, or such majority or minority. And again, that's similar, because again, that question came up during committee last month, that what would happen if somebody resigns, dies, or is removed? What's the approval process outside of the beginning of the year? And hopefully that addresses that. The next change, and we're going to come back and talk about all these. I don't mean just to throw them out there and have them not discussed. I just want to get them on the table. The next change is under the powers and duties, paragraph 4. Originally it read that the council shall attend all full meetings and special meetings and as requested committee meetings. There was some discussion at our last meeting that perhaps that might have been too onerous. Perhaps some legislators say, listen, like tonight we had a special meeting that, to my knowledge, we didn't require council. So in essence, what we're saying is here, as requested, the council shall attend full legislative meetings, special meetings, and committee meetings. So again, that's not something to pull them out for a meeting where they might not be required to attend. And the last change with respect to the powers and duties, and the last change so far, is item number 8. It says perform a variety of related activities as required. There used to be a period there. The addition there is not inconsistent with section 501 of the county law. Again, that was an accommodation to try and skirt the question or avoid the question as to whether or not the county legislature may supersede county law. And by putting this in there, we're not answering that question. It still makes us comply with the county law. So that's, before we get to Nancy's changes, or do we want to bring them in now? It doesn't matter to me. I don't. Or do we want to talk about what we have so far and then?
I just want to clarify
Sure.
this 7-day, 10-day rule.
Yeah.
So this has been in our boxes for 7 days.
At least.
There.
When was it sent out, Tina?
Was it the 31st?
Okay.
I think it
So
was.
it's been, at least, it covers, this one covers both the 10 and the 7-day rules. I thought it was 7, and I could be mistaken, but our council tells us it's 10. But in any event, it covers that. If we wanted to pass it tonight, But it's a moot point at this point because we don't intend passing it tonight.
Okay, well, that's my question, is your intention to not pass it? Because we're still deep in discussion and we wanna vet it more,
Yes.
and I had some suggestions,
Yes.
but if we didn't change this at all, it could be moved out of committee.
It could,
Okay.
yeah.
So, I mean, I really do think it needs a little more, and I made those suggestions, and maybe it can help with the, section 501 issue, hopefully. My changes maybe address that a bit.
Sure, do you
So,
want to lead us through your changes?
Sure.
Okay.
So, section 1D, here are my overall thoughts. I feel that we should and can have our own counsel for drafting rules and internal advice. But until we amend the charter, those attorneys will still fall under the county attorney. So section 501 gives the county attorney exclusive authority to represent the county in legal matters. So if we want majority.
Civil matters.
In civil matters. So if we want majority and minority counsel to truly be independent legislative employees, we need to put that in the charter. So that's why I made the changes. I feel like it needs more work. This, as it sits now, I don't believe carves out minority, majority legislative counsel positions out of the law department, not clearly enough anyway. So D, I added, I'm not gonna read the whole thing again, as desired in cooperation and consultation with the county attorney and the Department of Law, provided that such cooperation shall not create or imply any supervisory authority of the county attorney over such counsel. So I guess I'm just gonna read it. I have a ton of notes here and I can't even follow them. So if you guys have questions, I have answers, maybe. So section 2, establishment. Majority of the county legislature and counsel to the minority of the county legislature to be appointed in the manner and have the powers as provided herein. And such positions shall be employees of the county legislature and not the Department of Law established under Article 8 of this charter. So maybe that helps with.
Yeah, I think it does. It clarifies.
Do we?
Clarifies.
I think in the
Yeah.
context of subsection E, it helps. So I think if you keep reading, I think that because of the limitations in E, I think it helps. Otherwise, with absent the addition in E, it could just sort of amplify the challenge.
That's what I was just, so you can understand where I was coming from. I was really stuck on the fact of why we're doing this. So, initially my conversation was we funded these lines in the budget, we have majority and minority counsel. Do we codify it? Why is it needed? The way this is written, I don't feel like it's strong enough to keep us separate, carve it out of the county attorney's purview. So if that's what the real intention is, that's what I kept trying to work toward.
Sure.
So there's that too, and then under 2.118, perform a variety of related activities as required, not inconsistent with section 501 of the county law, and limited to advisory. So our council is limited to advisory and legislative functions only. They're not to represent us in a court, right? Does that make sense?
That limitation, I think, takes it outside of 501, so I think that makes all of this good.
One question on that point, if I could. I know there was an instance where the legislative council did represent the county legislature in a court case. It's the Duffy case, which I know you're familiar with, Heather. And again, if that was, we won't rely on perhaps a mistake as a precedent, but, and again, none of us were here in 1985 when that took place. Any thoughts on that?
I
What's that? Yeah.
don't think that was proper unless, and listen, I don't know what happened then or how that came to be. It could be that the county attorney, delegated the authority and says, you're most familiar with this, you go ahead and do that, if that's the case. But under 501, the authority of all of the lesser lawyers within the county would be through delegation. Similar thing happens at the DA's office with the town attorneys for prosecuting traffic tickets. They get delegation of authority from the district attorney, who empowers them to handle the traffic tickets on behalf of all
But
the
Heather,
county.
that's a little different, I'm sorry, that's a little different because they're hired by the district attorney.
They're not hired by the district attorney, they're hired by the town. They have a contract with the town.
I believe because they're listed as district attorneys, it may be a mutual contract, but, because I have some familiarity with the Duffy case, and the Duffy case, one of the things which came up is, and also history, there's always been separate true counsel to the legislature until 2025. And I applaud Legislator Montgomery for clarifying things. I'm not gonna be here, but Lord, I know we have to have separate counsel.
Respectfully, I just hadn't finished my thought. The idea being is that 501 and 701 are analogous statutes. One for the criminal branch of law in the county, one for the civil branch of law in the county. Both are the supreme lawyers for the county for those matters. They are then allowed to appoint assistants or deputies, as the case may be, and then they have the power to appoint special prosecutors or special county attorneys when there's a conflict or when there's an outside counsel matter that they can't handle for whatever reason because it's a specialized area of law or any of that. But all of that comes through the powers of those initial offices. And so that delegation of authority would happen. Now, what Nancy suggested takes us outside of that because we're not looking at the authority of that. We're carving out a special advisory role for the legislature. And because that is completely outside of the framework of 501 and 501's authority, I think it's fine. I think that we end up with a problem when we start invading the province of 501, in which case that's where we ended up where we were.
Because you did explain it to me, I'm not there yet as a legislator. We do have the power to supersede state law with the exception of the enumerated, and you would argue more, but under 34 of the Municipal Home Rule Law, there's 7 or 8 chapters of law that we're not allowed to supersede. One of those 7 or 8 chapters is not the county law. Can you talk to me again about that? Why the county law can, or this part of the county law can't be superseded? And I don't know if you've had the same conversation.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
So I'd like to bring everyone up to speed.
Yeah.
Is that there's actually 2 sections of the Municipal Home Rule Law, just so you guys understand, is sort of the carve out for counties and municipalities from the state, in a similar way to the 10th Amendment for the state carves out from the federal government. It's kind of like an analog. And within the Municipal Home Rule Law, it allows for certain carve-outs of our power to take care of the health, safety, and well-being of our constituents in much the same way that the 10th Amendment allows the state to do that. Okay? There's 2 sections of Municipal Home Rule Law that do that. Okay? There's Section 10, which has general provisions. One of the general provisions and general rules in Section 10 is that we cannot supersede what's called a general law. A general law is any section of law that applies to all of the counties the same way, okay? And 501 of the county law is a general law insofar as it applies to all of the counties in the same way. It creates the role of a county attorney that is supposed to be the lawyer for the civil matters of the county. Similarly, Article 701 is a general law for the district attorney's office, okay? Now, in addition to that, there's Section 34, which Legislator Birmingham just mentioned. That has other additional specific provisions that it carves out. And the reason it did that was because they didn't want to keep those broad rules for these specific things. They wanted to just narrowly tailor some additional things. The idea of Section 34 was to give us more power. It was basically to say, okay, we don't want to limit or impinge counties' ability on these matters, but there are still certain enumerated things that we want to keep for the state. And that's what Section 34 does. So Legislator Birmingham's question was asking, well, if they wanted to prevent us from addressing this matter under section, why didn't they put it under the enumerated section? And the reason is because this is an entire carve-out. This is part of the general law that hasn't been addressed anywhere else in the state, and they don't want to give us that power. If they had wanted to broadly give us that power, they would have said, you can supersede with the exception of this little bit, or you can supersede with the exception of that little bit. And that's what they did in section 34. They said, you can have all of these areas, but not these small areas. So the idea is that those two sections have to be read together. You can't read the municipal home rule law, one section in a vacuum, and pretend the other section doesn't exist. And if we read just section 34 and forget about section 10, we're interpreting the law in a way that makes section 10 meaningless. Why have a section 10 then if all that applies is section 34? You have to read the entirety of it together. And so that's where there is this distinguishing factor on it. And that's why I want to make sure that whatever we decide, we don't run afoul of the municipal home rule law. We don't take power away from the state that we don't have the authority to take.
Right, and thankfully, this amended law doesn't do that.
Exactly.
And even more so with Nancy's changes. We have promised each other, though, that we're going to go out for a cup of coffee. And I'm going to show her some cases. She's going to try and convince me where I think that, because as you know, 10 doesn't just apply to counties, it applies to all municipalities.
Yes.
So, but anyway, TBD, because I've got some cases that you might find interesting. But thankfully, we don't have to deal with that tonight, or at all with this local law, because from what I'm hearing from you, we're pretty good on no matter what we do with respect to your position on that.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Where were we? I guess, Erin?
So I wanted to talk about your.
Oh, well, but before I'm sorry. We did interrupt Nancy. She was going through her, we didn't get to E yet. And that's my fault. That's not
Can
your
I
fault.
stay on 8 for a
Sure, of
second?
course.
I know we've beaten a dead horse
No,
here.
please, that's what this
Because I
committee is.
did have a thought, and I just have to state that a lot of these changes came from reading and rereading notes from our legislative council.
Okay.
So it took a while for me to digest that and the emails. So regarding 8, and limited to advisory and legislative functions only, I don't know, can we say unless we decide we want to use them for? No, that would have the whole thing again, right? So no, okay, that was my question. And then E, section E is in a whole new added section, not section, but whatever you call it. Paragraph, independence and limitations. The council to the majority and the council to the minority shall not be part of, supervised by, or subject to removal by the Department of Law or the county attorney. Their functions shall be strictly advisory and legislative in nature. They shall not appear as attorneys of record for the county or the county legislature in any court or administrative proceeding, nor represent the county or the legislature in litigation or claims. Nothing herein shall affect the authority or responsibilities of the county attorney under Article 8 of this charter, including representation of the county and the legislature in all legal proceedings. So I just think that made it
And then we have an F.
clear. And we have an F. I just wanted to
Okay,
make
sure.
it,
Yep.
you know, just my comment was, why did I do that? I needed clarity. That's why I did it. My head hurts. F, equal compensation. The positions of counsel to the majority and the counsel to the minority shall be compensated at an equal rate, reflecting parity in qualifications, duties, and professional standing. Equal compensation is essential to ensure nonpartisan fairness, to prevent political discrimination, and maintain the legislature's commitment to equality and integrity in public employment. I looked at that, you know, carefully. I was fine with the way we budgeted it, but then after digesting this for a long time, it probably wouldn't be legal for us to have a difference in
Nor fair.
compensation. So that's the only reason why. And that's all I have to say.
All right. Other than that, you have no strong feelings on it. Thank you for putting
Sure.
that together. Eric?
So I'm gonna, I guess, go off of Nancy's version and the one that was presented to us today. So, number 4,
as powers?
is section 2, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 4 is section 2, I apologize, section 2. Number 4, powers, yes. So, as requested, attend full legislative meetings, special meetings, and committee meetings. So that's pretty vague. And then that goes with Nancy's number F with equal compensation. So how, if we're putting it in there, and let's say we have to make it equal and parallel, right? Because it's the same job essentially. How are we breaking that down? Who gets to call the attorney? Let's say I have an issue that I want our attorney there that night, and I'm not the chair of the committee, or I'm not the chair. Do I have the same equity in the body to say I want it there or no? So I have that question. And 2, like, how is this attorney or parliamentarian or whatever we decide on going to, like, make it's how many hours they're giving to us? You know, if one person wants them there at every single meeting, right, and somebody doesn't, we need to outline that a little bit more, I think, and understand that, to me, because, you know, there may be a night where I have more questions, and the chairman may not want that if they're the one that makes the decisions. So I feel like it needs to be equitable to everybody in the minority if it changes, and the majority as it changes, to be able to call on the council as needed, correct?
Sure. Would, as a suggestion, to your point, would amending 4 to say as requested by any legislator?
But then when, okay, so that would be great, but then when does that run out? So if this person's getting paid $50,000 and you have 8 legislators emailing them, and then we want them at the meetings, is that enough? Like, I'm kind of asking, like, how do you know how much is enough for what we're requesting? I think we need to really put some guidelines on, like, what that 50,000 or whatever the number is, what we're deciding how that's going to cover it, because is it going to be worth their while? I mean,
Well, you know, and this is just my thought on it, and then I'll get to Amy and Nancy. I think the first year or so, maybe 2 years, we're going to be flying by the seat of our pants with that kind of stuff a little bit. So to the extent those numbers come into more sharper focus during a year, I mean, if we have a member of the legislature that I want you there at every committee meeting, and at some point, legislative council, whether it's minority or majority, who's ever the one being tasked with that, can say, it's not worth my while, I'm out of here. And then the majority or minority, whichever council leaves, is gonna have to say, wow, okay, we might need to up that. We might need to have a full-time person. I mean, right now, they're part-time, it's my understanding, no benefit type of position. But if that changes, it changes. And so, it's imperfect, I agree, but in the beginning, I think it's the best we can do is just to, and again, that's gonna change, like you said, with each new legislature, because we're gonna have maybe that Birmingham legislator who wants the guy there or gal there every meeting isn't gonna be there in 2 years.
right, so that's going to bring me to my next point, if you'll
Sure,
allow
of
me
course,
through the chair. So we do have Heather here at every single meeting, and she does respond to us with no
But
cost.
she has nothing else to do.
I'm just saying, with no extra cost to these two other spots that we're creating.
Right.
Okay, so would we still have, I know they're still available for contracts and all that stuff, but are we looking for more of a parliamentarian? Like, could one side have a parliamentarian? And, that's kind of a question. And then also second to it was, the timing and transition. With 2 new legislators returning next term, I would think it would be inappropriate for departing members to push major structural changes. Because I think that the 2 new legislators coming in would be part of that conversation, and also in choosing, right? Just like you said, a Birmingham legislator may want somebody here at every meeting, and somebody may not. So I think it's important to have the year, as we talked about, that contract, which is also going to be hard, somebody going year to year on a contract, that's not great.
Well, no, it's not a contract, don't forget. It's an employment position for 1 year.
Okay. But I think that it's important to have the new legislators that come in be available to pick the people that they want to work with, because they're a part of this body. And that would be fair and equitable. I don't think making structural changes like that without them every single year would be appropriate.
Well, the good thing is, with respect to that point, in this year, the two new legislators, or I should say the outgoing two legislators, will not have any voice in picking next year's council, because that position doesn't start until January 1st, 2026. So the two new legislators, with respect to the personnel, will be among those of the majority, because they happen to be the majority, to pick the new majority council. So Paul and Greg won't pick the majority council, just as an example for this year. Similarly, other years going forward, again, if you take a look, it says after the first day of January in each year, or as soon as practicable thereafter. Again, that January 1st date's in the local law now. So to answer part of your question, that's already taken care of the way it's written.
Yes and no, but are we gonna allow the new legislators to come in and, is this an interviewing position where we're all sitting here and interviewing the person?
I would hope so.
Right, so
Yeah.
are those two new legislators that are coming in, which is like about 25% of the legislature,
It is
exactly, yeah.
Of the
23,
majority.
yeah,
Of the majority.
well, yes,
Yeah.
but, are they gonna come in and they're going to be able to every single year, we're gonna set it up during the holidays where they're gonna interview them, or should we move it back to maybe January 31st, we are doing this so that we're not interviewing during the holidays and at the end of the year?
Well, again, I think it's addressed because it says, or as soon as practicable thereafter.
Okay.
That could address your point.
Okay, I'm just looking
Good
at
point,
some
good
structural
point, yeah.
points, because I think it is going to change and evolve as new people come in and as people leave and things shift around. And to hear I'd like to hear what everybody would like as a consensus, and realistically see what this is gonna cost the taxpayers that we represent versus, what we have now, and if that's what everybody wants,
Yep.
I just wanted to bring those points. I think it's good to discuss this.
Great, perfect. Amy, then Nancy, unless the legislator who hasn't spoken yet has spoken.
To that point, we're always gonna have new legislators coming in. We have 3 people in the legislature being
Each year.
reelected or not every 3 years. So I think it's staggered enough where I think that is not gonna matter. The reason, so I think a parliamentarian is, I don't care what their party is. If there's a parliamentarian, that's just a law, and that's Robert's rules. There's nothing partisan about that, in my opinion. And I don't think there's anything really partisan about the law. I think if we have a minority council or a majority council, I think they're interchangeable. I don't think they both have to be at all the meetings. I think where I see this, and to Nancy's point, we used to caucus with our legislative council. And I understand how that would make me feel if I were Nancy, to have the legislative council caucusing with the Republicans. And he's allowed to do that. Our council at the time is allowed to do that. But I understand how that would make the minority feel uncomfortable, and I would just put myself into her shoes. I think if there was a caucus going on, and say the minority or the majority wanted a caucus and they wanted to have their legislative council join them beforehand, I think that's what we're talking about as far as minority and majority council. They might need a little bit of discussion, before we have this meeting tonight, I want to caucus with my minority or majority council, and we need to talk about this, this, and this. And I think that's where the partisanship might come into play. And it would also come into play in maybe writing resolutions. So for example, we wrote a resolution, and I know I complimented Nancy on this before. When she first came to the legislature, we had it was a Women's Reproductive Act, or whatever it was. We had a big meeting here. There were 8 Republican legislators. I believe we were all on the same page with this. And then there was Nancy, who had a different opinion. We had a resolution that we were going to pass or not pass. At that time, say the minority council were able to draft something for the minority party. I'm using that as an example. Maybe would have been able to write something for the minority council, which could have been discussed. Not that it would have passed, maybe or maybe not, but
Could have been better.
Well, I'm pro-life, so I wouldn't go that far, but we can disagree on that. But I think that's where the partisanship would come into play. So it might be not in the parliamentarian, not in the law, but in caucusing and writing resolutions. And that would be determined by the minority council or the majority council. So I don't see having two council positions showing up at every meeting. I would think they could. And it might even be a really good for them, because you know what, I'm gonna go to the Yankees game next week. Can you pitch, can you sit in the legislature for me?
Yeah.
There's a lot of meetings,
Yeah.
and to split it up that way might really help.
Not every issue is gonna be a partisan or a policy difference
Correct.
kind of issue. But
Correct.
for those that there are, it would be good for the minority and the majority to have it. Before I get to you, I just wanna see if, and you had spoken as well, these three guys haven't spoken yet. Do you have anything for either of the changes? By the way, we're not passing anything tonight. No? Nancy? And then we're gonna go to the public.
Yeah, this is just trying to keep a cohesive conversation going based on what Legislator Crowley and Legislator Sage said. I might need a drink of water. Regarding who the attorneys answer to, she's so nice. I believe, and don't quote me, and I could be totally wrong, in other counties the way it works is the legislative council answers to the majority leader and the minority leader of that caucus. So it is really not like every legislator has the authority to run rampant over the legislative council. That would be kind of insane. That's why they have minority and majority leaders. So there would be some control, and we wouldn't be like having them expend all of the time of what they're paid for on one person. Say one legislator calls them all the time. It's probably not allowable. I'm sure that we would give each other the courtesy and allow that, but it should go through the majority and the minority leader. But also, I think I just don't have a great understanding of how the compensation for these legislative counselors will work. I pictured something like, thank you so much. I can't see them taking a salary for $50,000 to show up here. I imagined something like they would bill up to $50,000. I don't know if we can work that out as that being an employee. That's more of somebody who's contracted, I guess, but it would be ideal if they were just billed for their work. And that way, like, I write my own resolutions. I wouldn't hire them to be a parliamentarian. Parliamentary procedure is not black and white. I just had a big, huge argument with a parliamentarian advising a committee, and I was like, you're wrong, and I won. Maybe. But, so, yeah, I don't know how that compensation would work, and I think we need to clarify that. I don't see it as like they're just part-time and they're showing up here and we're kind of giving them work as we go. I see it as it's a major issue that I need an attorney for, a legislative counsel for. I would call on them and they would bill me for that.
Yeah, those are good questions. Maybe we could have Paul Eldridge address I think one of the important things, and I think one of the reasons that this is made an employee is because of the question as to whether or not
501.
Well, no, not only 501, but also
Contracts.
the county, the contracts. The certain interpretations of the county charter and the county code state that the power of the county attorney is not just ministerial when it comes to signing county contracts for form, but rather substantive. I know that was a big discussion before I got on this board earlier this year as to whether or not, and I'm not going to get into that tonight, but I think that's one of the reasons that I think the two, or at least Amy has shared with me, that's one of the reasons that they wanted to make this an employee. Now, having said that, maybe there is a way as an employee, we have temporary employees too, don't forget, and we
Bill them.
well, yeah,
Or
they submit
Sorry.
timesheets.
Yeah.
So maybe it's, we don't specify whether it's a person who's a temporary employee or, I'm using the wrong word, 1094, whoever the 1094s are. Maybe we could do it that way, and I think Paul Eldridge would be able to help us on that. Greg hasn't spoken, then Bill, and Aaron, and then the public.
Thank you, Chairman. We'll direct this to Heather, please. As soon as we get into a situation where someone's billing by the hour, don't they kind of become an outside counsel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why
Okay.
that's what I thought you were gonna say. That's why we can't do it. They have to be salaried, position. Otherwise, they fall under the auspices of the law department.
But there might be some, like I said, we're not gonna pass anything tonight, maybe the next meeting, we can ask Paul Eldridge. From the personnel aspect, there might be a way in
How
civil
it's
service
defined.
law to have it still address not an outside counsel, but still a,
Yeah, and I mean, also, you guys had, we had discussed at a prior meeting about the idea of using the catapult survey to find, well, what is the median range for a 25-hour, which is what was discussed, part-time attorney, you know, and to make it, you know, comparable and appropriate and competitive with the rates. That's something that, you know, Paul would be able to assist with providing you with that information from the catapult survey results. And additionally, although not required for a position of this nature, there's nothing to prevent you from using the personnel office to create a job description. And although, again, it's not required for a position of this nature, like it is for regular civil service positions, but management confidential positions of all sorts often have job descriptions, and that's useful just for you know, God forbid there's ever litigation, you know what's inside or outside the scope of their job requirements. And it also will provide guidance for you all in sort of what the expectations are of the person coming in, because everyone can weigh in with personnel on what it is. And so some of these questions that have been asked over, well, what if we want them there, or if we don't want them there, some of that can be thought of and addressed in a mindful way.
no, that's good advice. Bill, then Aaron, then the public.
Thank you, Chairman. It's funny, because I was gonna say exactly the catapult survey that Legislative Counsel just mentioned. How did we come up with these two salaries? Does anyone know? How did we come up with this?
The $90,000 was the legislative council that we last had, that was the salary. Since we've never had a minority council, we didn't know how it would work, which is. Nancy and I kind of worked out a
suggested it.
number, yeah,
I
half
didn't-
a.
You know, based on what I know I would need them for, I'm sorry.
You got it. She's answering your question, yeah. go ahead.
I would also agree with, let's say, Montgomery. They should be paid the same amount of money.
I agree.
Same
But at
qualifications,
the time, when you're
everything's the
putting
same.
this in August, we really didn't have
Yeah,
a clue,
Use-
we're just trying to talk it through.
Use the Board of Elections as a good example here. We have two commissioners, a minority commissioner and a majority commissioner. I use minority and majority because, you know, there's not the same amount of registration on each side. They both get paid the same amount of money. For every position that is in the Board of Elections, there's two positions, one held by one group and one held by the other group. And they get paid the same compensation. It's redundant in many ways, but the reality is that's what happens. So we should treat this position the same way as we're treating the Board of Elections position, because they're not doing the same job, but it's the same concept.
Aaron, and then I think Greg had something to bring up. Aaron?
So I want to ask a question on, Chairwoman Sage had brought up that, and I'm going to call you Minority Leader Montgomery, because that's how it was put in. When you guys put through the budget, did you guys speak to personnel or the law department on this particular item? Did you ask them to weigh in on, you know, we want to bring in a new position for both? Can you weigh in on it?
I mean, I think, no.
Either of you? So we're not even using the council again that we had. So that's kind of a funny part to me. And that's no, it's not,
Yeah.
it's like, we have them sitting there. Why aren't we using them? Which to me is
Well,
silly.
they did weigh in extensively
After.
on this.
Yes,
So-
after. I'm
Yeah.
not throwing stones at either of you. I'm just saying, we have this great resource that we're not using, and it's been shown over and over again. I also.
I think Heather would disagree with you
I-
that
I also think there's
Birmingham
some
has bothered her several, how long were we on the call?
So I mean, and the question
And that's
is
what we're
whether
trying to
people will
address.
show up. I've been here for every meeting and I
You
make
have-
60 grand, so,
Yep.
And-
you know,
And I'll,
just saying.
and I'll say, just a half second, I'll say this again, and I said it to Conrad as well. and I'll put it on the record, and as you know, none of this is a reflection on the service you or Conrad have provided to us. I found our discussions lively and edifying for myself as well, so, and I know you don't take it that way. So just want to put that on the record. This is not a reflection on you or your advice or your counsel to us. I think we would all agree on that. I'm sorry, Aaron, I interrupted you.
No, I just have
Go
one
ahead.
more thing to
Yep.
say. So when it comes to, I heard the word partisanship being thrown around. This body has been anything but bipartisan, let's be real. Our minority leader has not sat on a committee for how many years? This is just, it's ridiculous. If we want to make real changes, then why don't we start with a charter change to make sure every member on the legislature has a committee and give them full equity? Again, I brought this up before, but everybody is in this room is elected by a certain majority of their population. And past two chair people have not given the minority leader a chance to represent her people at all. So why are we now all of a sudden saying that we don't need caucuses anymore and she deserves this and she deserves that? I just find it to be very entertaining that we haven't been bigger fans of giving everybody equal treatment over the past couple of years, and now all of a sudden we're jumping to do that, which I do think she deserves. And I think it's really been pretty disgusting to see what's gone on. So I do think that we need somebody that defends us, that is there to be there, but it needs to be that every legislator is able to speak to that person. It's not controlled by one secular person, because let's be real, at times there has been division on this body and people have been shut out. The way the committees are made up now, it's made up so that there's certain votes that pass all the time. And that's just fact of the matter. So,
And that's
Hang
politics.
on a second.
well, politics,
Yeah,
that's
see,
politics, you're right, and that's part of the problem, and that's exactly what the issue is that I have with all of this.
Well, we are nothing if not entertaining. I think you'll agree on that.
Well, I think it's ridiculous and it's
Bill?
unnecessary.
Right.
Great, I'm sorry, I heard Bill.
If I recall, and Nancy, please help me, the reason that there originally was a disparity in the salaries of the council is because you were trying to watch out for the taxpayers, and you suggested at the time that maybe there would not be as much need, and that's why it happened. It wasn't a question of bipartisan.
If I can address that
Sure,
through the
he asked a
chair.
direct question.
I mean, that was certainly a factor, but, honestly, when we were doing the budget, we received the budget in the 1st of October, and we had until when to, so, it was like we knew we wanted this, and we had to put something in there, and we knew it was going to evolve. So, should we have waited to have it fully developed before we put it in the budget? Maybe, but we didn't. And I think if we waited to get it fully, developed before it went in the budget, it wouldn't have gone in the budget. So, hey, it went in the budget. My thought was it might not even be used. I'm just gonna make sure it goes in there.
Right. And now, to your credit, your F, equal compensation, positions of council majority and council to the majority and minority shall be compensated at an equal rate. So you've taken care of this, and I
Yeah, and I
absolutely support
apologize,
you.
there
No,
was a lot going on that month, and it took me until really 4:30 today to come up with this. I had to read it and reread it and assess council's notes, and to the point of why didn't I consult with them prior? I mean, let's face it, it's the whole point of this is so that we're carved out of the county attorney's office, and we're provided a legislative counsel by the county attorney, thank you very much, and she's represented us very well. But I think I would not have even thought to consult with them, feeling maybe pressure to be one way or the other. So this is my completely independent take on it. And as you know, it evolved because I wasn't really here when we first allocated the funds for it. I was like, yeah, it's fine. We'll just get some money in there and we'll have a council. And I'm doing all that work anyway, as I have been, sometimes to my detriment. And, I probably could have used it at some points, but other times really well.
Great. Any members of the public have any comments? Sir, sorry, your name is?
I'm not. I would tell you.
Oh, the purple pen.
Oh, the purple pen.
Oh, yes, it's the purple.
Okay. Brett Yaris, Carmel Hamlet. Great discussion, lots of thoughts. I think the amendments that I've heard, I think the one that was presented in Legislator Montgomery's additions all make a lot of sense. I think for me, the biggest thing that I would point out, and this actually goes back to one of the first times I ever spoke before you guys was back in February on Legislator Crowley's public speaking resolution. And honestly, my arguments there translate really well to this conversation too, which is not just the need of codification, but to continue the idea of the separation of powers between the branches of government. You all know me by now, you know I'm a big advocate for the legislative bodies of government, regardless of what level of government that is, that the legislature serves as the direct representatives of the people. That's why in our United States Constitution, it's Congress that leads off the document in Article 1. That we are, or the legislature is entrusted to be the direct representatives of their localized constituents. And when this first came up, months ago, that was where a lot of my my agreement with it was. It furthered the idea that the legislative branch of this government would have separation from the executive. And that goes right back to our founding documents, okay? James Madison authored Federalist Paper 51. And that was an argument that actually laid the foundation and the outline for the idea of checks and balances in a federalized government. Without that Federalist paper, that probably doesn't make its way into our United States government now. But in that, the reason he talks about the separation of powers and he talks about the need for checks and balances is because he begs the readers to not fall in love with the idea that men are angels. He acknowledges the fact that people, once they get involved in government, are typically going to be predisposed to serving their own self-interests. And that's why checks and balances are so important, is because anyone can get into an elected office and they can go in there with the best of intentions and then they can find ways in which to serve themselves. And so if the branches of government, if the branches of government had that opportunity to make sure they could check against one another, that would be an ideal situation. So one thing I haven't heard in this conversation is what happens if the legislature of Putnam County needs to sue the county executive of Putnam County, or vice versa. The county executive of Putnam County needs to sue the legislature. And one of the challenges here is that would mean that the county attorney, as it stands now, and I may be wrong on this,
Represents us.
I'm sorry?
Represents us, and he has nothing.
Yeah, that's how it works.
That's how it works.
That was one point I just wanted to make, is that the county attorney's supreme loyalty is to the legislature.
Right.
And so in the event that there's a conflict, like you just mentioned,
Right.
the county executive gets appointed outside counsel, and our loyalty is to the legislature.
Right, and that kind of is inherent in the conflict here, right? Is that there's nothing that stops, unfortunately, we saw this during the James Garfield administration, there's nothing that inherently stops machine politics from being able to circumvent those rules in a non-official capacity. And that's why both of the branches should have the ability to have their own counsel designated by them. That's how the federal government works, okay? So if the United States Congress were to sue the president, or the president were to sue the United States Congress, the Congress has its own counsel. And that the executive branch of the United States government has absolutely no say in who, whether it be the House of Representatives or the Senate, appoints to be their counsel to represent them in that case. In this government, the county executive appoints the county attorney, okay? And so the county attorney, while his loyalty or her loyalty would be to the loyalty or responsibility would be to the legislature, the very fact that the county attorney is appointed by the county executive creates an inherent conflict of interest. That's why it actually, the legislature having its own counsel doesn't have bear any issue with New York County Law 501. And why other counties do have legislatures where their counsel represents them in any intra-branch conflict. And so that's something I would just love to see added to this law, because it is at the very spirit of the American ideal of a separation of power and checks and balances. It prevents the idea of machine politics getting involved in here, where someone who doesn't have a charter power to do something can utilize personal relationships in order to gain that power in an unofficial capacity, which then can have bearing on the effects of outcomes in those intra-branch disputes. So that's just something I would like to see, and just using those examples, Federalist 51, and then the way the current US government works between its legislative body and its executive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question for you. Have you seen, you mentioned Garfield, there's a, something on Netflix about
Yeah, it's called Death by Lightning.
Death by, that's what I was thinking.
Great show, but honestly.
Is that where you got it from?
Brett's
It's not,
actually
the-
65 years old at heart.
The book, American history major in school, but the book that
purchase.
show is based on is actually way better and actually gets more into detail of what I mentioned. The show doesn't actually get into this, but it does get into the idea of what Garfield was up against with machine politics. He wins the presidency, but then he's immediately up against these unofficial relationships and cronyism that unfortunately derails, well, his life, but also the presidency. So, but anyway, just to consider that, I would encourage Federalist 51 as really the main starting ground and why Madison articulated this idea of checks and balances and to have complete separation between the branches, especially in intra-branch disputes.
Thank you. In a second. I was just, thank you. You're dismissed. Okay, thank you. You had mentioned other county legislatures, and this is something you and I will hopefully talk about. I know some other counties do have legislative counsel that does represent them. So, and I'm not putting you on the spot now, and I'm not asking, but if you'd like to weigh in, how does that
Sure.
interact here?
Let me just first start out with just
Sure.
addressing a few things. Mr. Yaris brought up some great points. And this is something we've discussed, is that fundamentally, the balance of powers under our charter largely favors the legislature. And so one of the things that, Mr. Yaris brought up was the appointment of the county attorney. Well, indeed, the county executive appoints the county attorney. It must be confirmed by the legislature. If the legislature had a fundamental problem for whatever reason or challenge with any such appointment, they could choose to reject the appointment. That's power rested here. And so this is one of the discussions that we had with this, is that under the current framework of our charter, and this is not to say that it can't be changed, but under the current framework of the charter, right now what we're discussing is essentially the legislature having 3 attorneys and of supreme loyalty, and essentially the county executive having none in the grand scheme of things. And so this is where we raise the possibility of, is there a broader examination of the charter that needs to be examined? Just in the short time that I've been here, there's been an awful lot of local laws and charter changes proposed. And then you change one thing and then you realize that something else needs to be changed. And given the import of this position and the balance of powers exactly raised by Mr. Yaris, that maybe this whole structure needs to be examined. Maybe there really does need to be a charter revision commission convened so that all of the branches of government can have representation, the legislature can raise all of these, concerns, and maybe all of this can be sorted out. Because part of the reason why other legislatures are able to have attorneys in different roles is because of the separation of powers and the structure that are in place. Our county, as I discussed with you, is not a pure charter county. We have, there's certain areas in New York State law where New York State says you can either choose to adopt the state structure or you can choose to have your own structure, okay? That's what they call a permissive law, okay? So where the state says you can either choose to do this or you can choose not to do this, okay? In those instances, our charter, powers that be, chose to adopt New York State law. We made, and when
Public officers law
yeah,
being
in
one.
public officers law, 18 is one example. I think there's a couple of other examples. But we chose to adopt New York State law. By doing that, we have now created this hybrid situation where we have to follow, because we adopted New York State law in certain circumstances, and then we have our charter in other circumstances. That makes analysis really freaking hard. As someone who had to come up with memos to inform you guys, it makes the analysis near impossible, because cases that are from pure charter counties don't apply to us because we're not a pure charter county. But then cases where we have, complete state compliance don't really apply to us either because we've adopted charters in certain places. So I think the whole problem here is that our structure is been done this way. It's been done with this law here and this law there and this, with no sort of overarching view. And everything has to be read as a whole, right? And this is what I was talking about before, is that we can't read our charter in a vacuum where we just look at this section, but we ignore the fact that New York State applies to this whole other section. You know, and I think that maybe it's time, you know, maybe we're having enough of these issues that it's time that you may want to convene a charter review commission and take a look at the whole thing.
That's very helpful. Would a remedy to that be, I know when I was on the village board in Brewster, we adopted the state vehicle and traffic law as a county, as a village code, so that it was very easy. We just took the statutory language from the V&T law and made it our county code, so that at that point, and villages don't have charters, a little different, I know that, but with respect to at least the public officers law, if we adopted to follow it, but we didn't incorporate it into our charter. If we were to incorporate the public officers law or any other state law that we currently have agreed to abide by in the sense that we adopted it, if we made that part of our charter, that could remedy what you're talking about.
Theoretically, yes. I mean, that's sort of what Westchester did in their administrative code, you know? And I haven't analyzed it to comment, but generally that's what they did, is they created a full structure administrative code that adopted very much the same as state law, but it was all spelled out within internally. So they became a pure, you know, they have their own law. And that's the thing, is that then you have a purist system, and then you can look at things through that structure. And that's part of the problem we have here, is that we don't have that.
So if we were to, I'm not going to ask you because it's unfair to me to ask you, but I'm pondering if we were to adopt the certain provisions of the county law or other laws, public officers law in particular, as a charter provision. And then from that point on, whatever the state legislature does with the public officers law would be changed. And if we don't do anything with respect to that, it's still in our charter. That might be a remedy. Certainly nothing we're going to be able to get to tonight, though.
Right, and the thing is that, and then what you can do it for and what you can't do it for is going to matter too, for the same reasons we discussed under, you know,
34.
Under
we
34.
Can't touch those, right?
Exactly. So, you know, it really does require a whole analysis of the charter as a whole to look at, okay, what are the permissive state statutes, okay? So, because those we're just going to want to integrate in. Then we'd have to analyze, okay, well, what are the carve-outs? What is still going to be with New York State no matter what we do? And then what flexibility do we have for everything in between? What can we address? What do we need to address? And, you know, all of this needs to be sort of built out from that structure. And, you know, these are, as you said, these aren't conversations that are solved in a night. These aren't conversations that are even solved in a day. These are things that need to be sort of really discussed and dug into and looked at, so that, you know, you can create a comprehensive plan that works, so that we're not patchworking something together where we fix one thing but it causes a new problem.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. Any other comments on this, Greg? And then we'll move on, maybe.
I think what Mr. Yarris said is very, very important, and also what Heather just said, but that's a very time-consuming and deliberative process. But what I remember is the county executive sued the legislature. So the county executive got assigned his outside counsel. Then we hired a counsel, and the case was dropped, so it never went to trial. And that outside counsel was never paid because the county attorney said that we did not have the right to hire outside counsel. So I'd like to see some provision added to this, that in the event the county executive sues the legislature, that the legislature has the right to use legislative counsel and choose outside counsel of their own without any interference from the county attorney. Because the county attorney is appointed, even though his allegiance is to be us, the county attorney is appointed by the county executive. Now, that's the concept. I don't know the language, and hopefully, Dan, you can help me with that, but I would like to add that to Nancy's suggested changes.
I mean, that's a far more sweeping change that brings up a lot of these things that I'm discussing. I mean, that's changing the powers. You'd have to have a mandatory referendum to do that.
Well, we're
There's
changing.
two schools of thought on that as well.
And also, don't you have to have, is it, like, don't we have a through the chair,
Right.
don't we have a list of vendors that are put on there every year?
Yeah.
And added, so we have those to choose from, but we can't just willy-nilly pick and choose who we want. Because they're prorated at a government rate for,
Or
So-
have provided basis for specialty where there's a departure from government rate. But
So-
everyone starts at government rate and then they provide if there's a basis for.
Labor council is different, yeah, because of particularity of that area of law.
okay.
Nancy, and then I'd like to move on, if we could, to the next item.
Yeah, we should move on, but, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think we can create the language for this in the event of a conflict.
Yes.
And it's not that hard,
No.
and we
I
don't
mean,
wanna,
if someone could help me with the language, I would make a motion to add it at this time.
We're not gonna, we've amended this, have we amended this already? No, I don't think we
No, we
have,
haven't.
we haven't. I'd rather get something in writing for all of us to see, and that could just be something as simple as an email, or it's something that Nancy passed around today, as opposed to on the fly.
I mean,
Since we're not passing anything tonight anyway.
Yeah, but timing is.
Well, that brings me to the wrap-up portion of this, I think.
I mean,
We do have the either 7 or 10-day aging process that has to be in our mailboxes, before it can be considered by a committee and then adopted by a full legislature.
but if that little provision is not accepted tonight, then we have to wait till the next meeting and it goes through.
Well, none of Nancy's suggestions have been accepted tonight either.
Well, I
And
assume we're gonna vote.
neither of my suggestions.
Well, I
have been
assume that we're gonna move it.
Said it was discussion, right? You said it was
Well,
discussion
yeah,
only.
I don't, we don't have the time tonight to do it. I don't believe we do.
you got a baseball game?
No? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
I
even if
think
we
it still
pass
needs
it.
more talk.
No, I don't disagree with you,
So
but
it says right here, approval of local law, right on the agenda.
it does, but,
We changed.
but here's the deal. If we change it tonight
Mhm. By the amendment,
by the amendment, then we start the 7-day clock again.
right?
And then, I just don't know if we have the time. Because we have holidays, and I don't know, what is the committee, I mean,
Let's not pass it tonight, table to the next time. We have a lot of things that have to be discussed, this thing. There's a
well, we
lot of
can't pass
issues.
anything tonight.
Yes.
Well, we can amend something tonight, but we can't pass anything tonight. We can amend it with Nancy's changes, because my changes actually have aged for 10 days at least. But Nancy has some good points here, we could put those in, but then we gotta start either the 7 or 10-day clock, starting whenever Diane puts it into our mailboxes. And then a legislative meeting would have to be had.
A committee meeting would have.
Well, actually, we could do it to, I just wanna go over the process first. We could pre-file it to a future full meeting if it's aged for the 7 or 10 days before that, I would think,
In final form.
in final form. And then, if it passes with 6 votes, because it's a charter change, we would send it down the hall. The county executive has 25 days, because he then has to hold a public hearing,
Right.
and he has 25 days to either sign or veto it.
She's gonna be out of town. Anyone else gonna be out of town?
Well,
So pass,
I think we need more discussion on this.
Is it, I mean, is it possible to print something right now and add it as an additional?
well, we can't pass anything, we can't pass this unless we pass everything as it was in our box 10 days ago, so.
No, I'm not saying pass it.
Okay.
I'm just saying accept the amendments, including possibly a G section, G paragraph, calling for representation in conflicts.
All right, let's try and do it. Let's see what we can do.
Okay, so-
which part?
Yes.
I mean, again, it's just my opinion, but I mean, I think that specific issue, I think, runs afoul of, because it's the county attorney's conflict, it's in representation. The county attorney who determines whether he has a conflict, and if he does, he appoints outside counsel. that's changing the powers. Oh, and I mean, I'm, you know, just saying, we put in a lot of work and research and time into making sure that we didn't run afoul of this issue in order to avoid problems. And I'm just telling you that legally, I believe that starts to create a problem.
But what about this? What about, and this is one of my favorite sayings, what about not making the perfect the enemy of the good? Let's take what we have here, and again, we're not passing it tonight, we're just trying to put something together for final form. Take what was in our box for 10 days, combine it with what Nancy has put together, make that, and Diane, I'll defer to you, and I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot, make that combined document, because I don't think your changes conflict with mine, they're just supplemental to mine.
Correct.
I think we can blend those together, and if we can get them in the box by tomorrow.
Tomorrow the office is closed.
Oh, true, Wednesday. Start the 10-day clock, and then we could call a special meeting at some point. And again, this is where I become skeptical, but again, not making the enemy the perfect, the enemy of the good. Count those. I think, Ed, did you send out an email for, I think I responded to your email about the December dates.
Yeah,
Did
nothing
you
is.
get much response yet?
I've got a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do. And I'll get you.
Yep,
You're
it's
next. You're next. Let's see what we do. How about that? Okay. I'm going to go to Aaron, then Bill. And
So
then Nancy.
what about all the other amendments that we all discussed tonight? How do you want them submitted to you to be added in or voted upon or taken into consideration? Because right now it only sounds like we're taking, and I know Nancy did the work and put
Yep.
it in writing, so I get that.
Yeah.
But, so now that, at the beginning of this, you stated that you didn't want, it was just for discussion, we were gonna talk
Right.
about this. So what about other people's input and consideration, such as defining the role and making sure, we talked about Paul Eldridge coming in and making sure that it was appropriate and salaried and, or not salaried, if it was a contract or how it was gonna be done. And what about all of those things that we haven't considered yet and the other amendments that other people wanna make to it? How
Right.
do you want that submitted
Um,
and by when?
Okay. Any more questions?
No, I just
Okay.
wanna know so it's fair and equitable.
Sure. Well, each of us, all 9 of us, have had this in our box for 10 days.
Mhm.
Actually, in the most form, it's been in our possession over a month, because the original one was entertained in this committee a month ago.
Mhm.
So I would say that for those that took the initiative to make amendments like Nancy did, to have it here tonight, bravo. Like, I gave some amendments based on our discussion a month ago. Nancy has some amendments that she labored over and put her time into, and to the extent any other legislators haven't done that, what they could do is they could try and make an amendment on the floor if there is a special meeting, and if that amendment passes, then we'll have to start the process over again. If that amendment does not pass, and we adopt what's been in our boxes for 10 days at that special meeting, and it passes with 6 votes, it gets sent down the hall. So to those of my colleagues that might have some additional changes, have them ready for whenever the special meeting might be, and convince a significant amount of your colleagues to join you in those amendments. And if those amendments pass with only 5 votes, you only need 5 to amend and 6 to pass, so the advantage is for the amenders, then it just kills it for this year, which is fine. But if you don't have enough votes and the special meeting happens and 6 votes pass it, after the appropriate aging period, it gets sent down the hall.
No, I know how all that works. I just,
Okay, well,
we had
that's
brought up,
my-
we had
my-
brought up different points that I had
Right.
said tonight,
I'm
and you
eager to
even
see-
brought up personnel being an
Right.
issue that we should discuss with Paul, so.
I did, but that's not mutually exclusive. We can still discuss those, because that's more
What?
mechanical than the statute. We could discuss those in January, by the time, we're ready to appoint somebody, or each respective party is ready to appoint somebody.
What about the salary?
If the
Well, that could be, again, don't forget, the proposed law says, shall appoint after the first day of January or as soon as practicable thereafter. If the minority wants to wait until the salary thing is done, we could. And if the majority
If
does.
this
Oh, well, if
passes,
this passes, we don't have to worry about it.
So
Yeah,
I
that's right.
thought I
That's
still
good
had the
call.
floor. I didn't know.
I thought you were finished, I'm sorry.
So with number 4, though, I still have a question, like how, we don't have anything written out, like, as requested, attend full legislative meetings and special meetings and committee meetings. There's no explanation on who is going to,
How would you like it to read?
well, I want everybody to have fair and equitable representation. So if I want our attorney there, I want them to be able to show up. If you know, we've had some people at times where they've shot down in the past, you know, something being put on the agenda or things like that. So I don't want that to happen to anybody. I want them to be able to have the resources that they deserve to do their job. That's what I'd like to see.
So like Nancy, like Nancy did, put pen to.
I will do it.
Put pen
That's
to
that's
paper,
no
and
problem.
then start counting noses. Nancy, then Bill.
A couple of things, if I
Sure.
may.
Yep.
My thought on Legislator Crowley's comments is that throughout our entire charter, I don't think it ever specifies for any position, salary, or job description. We have codified in our charter positions, and they're appointed by and fired by and whatnot, and that's what the charter is for. In regard to salary and
Yeah,
job
budgetary
descriptions,
amendments for that.
that comes, you know, I'm happy to have that evolve. I'd like to know ahead of time, but we don't have that right now, but that's just not how the charter works. And I do have a complicated question for Legislative Counsel that I can't probably phrase, but I'm thinking about the conflict section, if we do adopt that, and it sounds like it wouldn't be legal for us to adopt that because of what you stated, but I think what you stated also relates to the very nature of the charter changes we're making. Like the county attorney by the charter is the sole legal provider of the county. And we are carving that out. Why can't we carve out representation and conflicts between branches within the same charter change here that we're making now?
Well, based on the amendments that you made, you specifically limit it to advisory and legislative functions only. Conflicts only arise if there's a matter in controversy. So a conflict would only arise if we're talking about litigation. So it wouldn't be appropriate in this statute. But this is what I was saying about having a charter review commission was for that reason, is that if you guys want to look at that, if you want to examine things like that, you got to look at the whole thing. Because if you try to do it just piecemeal, it's going to mess something else up. But, you know, specifically for this purpose, it just wouldn't be appropriate here because conflicts only arise for litigation. It arises if there's a matter in controversy. It's not going to arise in an advisory legislative function.
Understood. Thank you.
Sure. Bill?
Thank you. We just heard what Counsel said. If we do it in piecemeal, we could screw the whole thing up. We all remember the first meeting in January, we pushed through the legislative manual.
Outrageous. Who did that?
Well, you pushed it through, Chairman. And then it took 8 months to nitpick this whole thing. And then in August, what did we do? Well, we messed it up. Let's go back to the original one. Let's not do that. Same thing with this thing right here. Let's get it right before we move forward.
Great, thanks. Greg, then I really want to wrap it up.
Okay, so then, based on what Heather just said, instead of allowing the legislative attorney, I would just like to have the future legislators that if this body gets sued again by the county executive, that the legislature has the right to pick their own outside counsel. So that's completely outside of this.
Would it be a separate charter change?
Yeah, that would be something separate from this.
Mhm.
And this is something I discussed, is that, you know, maybe you guys want to examine the separation of powers. Maybe you want to look at how all of this is structured. Maybe you want to, you know, address this. But there's a lot of changes that would go into making that one change. That one change seems simple, but it implicates a lot of different parts of the charter. And so that's what I'm not trying to punt or discourage you from that goal. I'm just saying that in order to accomplish that, what seems like that simple one goal, there's a lot of different changes that would need to be made.
Okay, so it's not incorporated as part of this?
It wouldn't be in part of this.
And when we come back on Wednesday, you and I will talk and let's see if we can get that language as quickly as possible.
Because again, you have nothing to do. I'm, of course, being facetious, you're so busy. I know, you're so busy, you know I'm kidding, so I know
So
she's very busy.
to get the process moving,
What I would suggest, if you want to do that, if there's nothing to say it can't be a standalone local law.
that's where I'm going.
Unimpeding or unaffecting what we hope to have in final form by Wednesday.
That would be multiple local laws.
Indeed, a votorama, if you will.
And so again, I can only just give good advice, I can't make you take it, but my advice is if you're going to make that many changes, that a charter review commission would be advisable, because there's impact on lots of different things. And how you would enforce that matters in terms of the other discussion that we had with respect to, just the
The good thing is
structure
if
of the
it was
charter.
separate from this local law.
It should
and
be
it was-
separate.
Yes, and if it was challenged, it wouldn't affect what,
Correct,
we've all
it
talked
should be
about.
separate
Okay.
regardless.
perfect.
So, Mr. Chairman, how would we, so we can get the clock, how would we accept the changes proposed by Legislator
Well,
Montgomery?
Well, we are not voting on anything tonight, because if we did, I mean, we could.
You could,
Well, let me ask you this, we could pre-file some, we could call us, like we did this evening, we had a special meeting for a matter that did not go through committee, this was the SNAP thing. We could have a special special legislative meeting. What I would suggest is, let's go ahead and synthesize both of these together on Wednesday. I'll do it tomorrow, but I'll show it to everyone. I'll send it to the clerk, and she'll send it to everybody, incorporating what Nancy has into what was already in our box for 10 days today.
that
Once
doesn't
that's,
require a vote now.
it doesn't,
You
it
don't-
doesn't, no,
you
it'll
don't need
just
a
be
vote.
for everybody's consideration, and the aging issue is
No,
what's
it's
mattered.
hard.
So it's, and again, that's why I think we're gonna run into some problems, but let's run it up the
Yeah,
flagpole, let's give it a
I
shot.
Thanksgiving.
hate
It's
that
gonna be-
aging issue.
I know, but what's that?
I said, I hate that aging issue.
I know, but let's run it up the flagpole, see what we have, and if at the end of the day, we don't have enough time because of the holidays and people's vacation schedules, we just don't, but we won't be able to say we didn't try. So we'll do that. Let's move on to item number 8, a discussion, legislators' access to county files. We have a memo that was sent to me as chair of this committee by Paul. Legislative access to file, we do have a response from Heather. Paul, it's okay?
Yeah,
to turn it over to you?
really, it was a very simple, what I thought was a very simple request to access a file. As I understood it, we were the client of the county attorney. There's been, for years now, discussion about 34 Glenida and the sale of 34 Glenida. I asked just to see the file. I got Mr. Cherico's memo. We're being denied, or I'm being denied access to the file.
That wasn't my understanding of what the memo said.
I have the memo here, and it says, legal file is not properly disclosed for several reasons.
Correct.
It gives a reason.
The legal file.
But I didn't ask for I wanted the real estate file.
And that is not within our possession, so he explained that, and I explained that to you too.
So I would just be clear, if I call the Realtor up, you have no problem with me?
No, the Realtor is responsible for the Realtor's file, so yeah, you can talk to the Realtor at any time. I don't know what the Realtor's policies are, I can't speak to that, but that's not within our possession. And, the county executive and John Tully usually, have up-to-date information of this. They don't have the Realtor's file, but there's nothing to prevent you from asking them for an update. I mean, Mr. Tully's always been willing to give updates as either.
I understand that that's not true. I understand there are some offers that have been made that have not been shared with the legislature.
Well, an offer until an offer is accepted or being negotiated doesn't go anywhere. I mean, that's the executive's function, is to negotiate
Well,
contracts.
that's exactly what's happened. They're not going anywhere.
I
So run for
can't
county
comment.
executive.
I would ask the county executive's office to respond if you have questions with respect to that. I can't speak to,
Well,
There.
the chairwoman apparently
I did.
has
I
made
heard
her
back
inquiries, and
everything.
nothing, it's not
I
going,
had
I just wanted to see the file. I'm told that we're not allowed to see the file, and I'm gonna leave it right there. I'm not gonna take it any further.
Thank you. That was item 8. Item 9, FYI, litigation report, the standard confidential report we get every month for the county attorney's office. It's very good about getting this stuff. And thanks for that. If there is any discussion on this, it is a confidential matter, so we'll have to go into executive session. Seeing none, that's just for filing. Please dispose it properly. Any other business from a member of the legislature for tonight? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks,
Aye.
folks. And thank you, Heather.